Explore the rugged landscapes of the Wild West, a time when cowboys roamed freely, outlaws held sway, and an unexpected secret flourished: cannabis. From Mexican laborers to defiant frontiersmen, this plant transcended its medicinal use to become a vital aspect of life. But how did it influence the Old West, and why has it been overlooked? Join us as we delve into the concealed history of cannabis cowboys and the role of marijuana in the Wild West. Before we proceed, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. In the 16th century, cannabis made its way to the Western Hemisphere, introduced by Spaniards who brought it to Chile, primarily for fiber production. In North America, the Spanish also cultivated cannabis, focusing on hemp across various farms. During the early colonial era, hemp emerged as a vital crop for farmers. Alongside tobacco, it became a significant export long before the American Revolution began. This journey started in 1611, when the first settlers of Jamestown, Virginia, transported several plants across the Atlantic. By 1619, King James I urged the American colonists in Jamestown to enhance their cultivation efforts to benefit England. The Virginia Company, which managed Jamestown, instructed landowners to grow and send 100 hemp plants to meet England's demands. Over time, colonists expanded their hemp farming to strengthen England's foothold in the Americas. The cultivation of cannabis was instrumental in shaping the early development of what would eventually become the United States. Notably, George Washington himself grew hemp at Mount Vernon as one of his primary crops. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, hemp was widely used for producing rope and fabric across the nation. Following the introduction of cannabis to New England in 1629, it became a vital crop in North America, remaining so until after the Civil War. Hemp played a crucial role in both colonial society and the early economic frameworks of the United States. In 1775, Kentucky began its hemp cultivation, and by the 19th century, extensive hemp farms had developed in states such as Mississippi, Georgia, California, South Carolina, and Nebraska. In addition to its industrial applications, cannabis gained prominence in the field of medicine. By 1839, Irish physician William O'Shaughnessy brought cannabis into Western medicine after witnessing its therapeutic uses in India. He showcased its efficacy in relieving muscle spasms and pain, as well as in treating ailments like migraines and sleep disorders. Cannabis quickly became a widely used remedy for pain relief until the advent of aspirin led to a decline in its popularity. During this time, there was a growing push to regulate the sale of medicines. States implemented laws to tackle issues such as mislabeled drugs, undisclosed narcotics, and improper sales practices. These regulations often mandated clear labeling of hazardous substances or restricted their sale to licensed pharmacies with a physician's prescription. Some laws also prohibited the sale of these medications to minors and limited the number of prescription refills. The objective of these measures was to enhance consumer safety while managing the distribution of potentially harmful substances like cannabis. A bulletin from the United States Department of Agriculture during this era indicated that 29 states had enacted legislation regarding cannabis. States like Wisconsin and Louisiana required a doctor's prescription for cannabis sales, while others, including Nebraska and New York, mandated labeling but did not specify restricted drugs. In New York, cannabis was initially categorized as a poison under a law enacted in 1860, following several suicides linked to substances later classified as poisons. The initial draft of this legislation prohibited the sale of cannabis without a physician's written order. However, the final version allowed sales without a prescription, as long as the purpose and details of the buyer were documented. All packaging was mandated to feature the word poison in bold red letters. In states where cannabis was not classified under poison regulations, there were still persistent attempts to control its sale and usage. In 1880, a bill was proposed in California to regulate the sale of opium and other narcotic substances, including hemp-based products. Nevertheless, this proposal was retracted in favor of a bill that concentrated exclusively on opium. By this period, cannabis was readily accessible in the western United States and emerged as a favored alternative to tobacco due to its plentifulness and versatility. Its use became particularly widespread in regions where tobacco was less available, especially in Western territories. Cannabis was more affordable and often grew wild along roadsides, depending on the area. The extensive availability of cannabis in the Wild West represented a significant shift, as it began to be consumed mainly for its psychoactive effects rather than for medicinal reasons. This change transformed cannabis into a recreational substance, leading to the emergence of what became known as the Cannabis Cowboys. In the 19th century, the western United States underwent significant transformation due to irrigation projects, coinciding with the aftermath of the Mexican-American War. This period saw Texas become a refuge for a considerable number of displaced Mexicans and individuals escaping the political unrest in Mexico. Consequently, Texas emerged as one of the initial frontier regions to experience a marked rise in recreational cannabis consumption, predominantly within working-class communities, especially among Mexican laborers. During this era, cowboys, many of whom were of African American and Mexican descent, were notable participants in the recreational use of cannabis. Despite this, cannabis did not achieve widespread acceptance among the frontier settlers, who favored other substances such as alcohol, opiates, and narcotics. The term marijuana, an anglicized adaptation of the Spanish word for reefer, also entered the U.S. lexicon during this time. The recreational use of cannabis began to gain traction in the early 20th century, largely due to the influx of Mexicans escaping the dictatorship of President Porfirio Diaz. A prominent figure linked to cannabis during this period was Francisco Pancho Villa, the renowned Mexican revolutionary leader. Celebrated for his military acumen and often likened to a Robin Hood figure, Villa was also known for his appreciation of cannabis. Although many aspects of his personal life remain enigmatic, his adventures have been preserved through oral traditions and folk songs in Mexico, such as Carados. These songs frequently emphasize his military accomplishments and his connection to cannabis, vividly illustrating his life and legacy. The ballads associated with Pancho Villa, including Adelita and La Cucaracha, portray him not only as a formidable military strategist, but also as an individual who relished life's pleasures, including his interest in cannabis. During the Mexican Revolution, certain songs became integral to the culture, capturing the essence of Villa's adventures and way of life. Adelita narrates a poignant love story, while La Cucaracha emerged as Villa's anthem, commemorating his triumphs, challenges, and lavish lifestyle. Notably, La Cucaracha references the use of marijuana, which was prevalent among Villa's soldiers during the Revolution. It is estimated that around half of his troops, including many Yaqui natives, utilized marijuana, sometimes prior to battles, as they believed it bolstered their strength and bravery. In addition to marijuana, Villa's men frequently consumed mezcal and sotol, alcoholic drinks derived from desert flora. Villa himself was well known for his opulent lifestyle, which contributed to his image as a charismatic leader who relished life while also being recognized as a skilled military strategist. Despite commanding poorly equipped and untrained forces, Villa successfully executed operations that fostered loyalty among his followers, known as the Villistas, even in times of hardship. Born Doroteo Arango, Pancho Villa's early life was marked by poverty and adversity. He rose to prominence as an outlaw and bandit, becoming a folk hero to destitute farmers, whom he often aided through raids on affluent haciendas. Villa was also notorious for his romantic pursuits, which included multiple marriages and relationships. However, his life took a pivotal turn in 1909 following the death of his daughter and the mistreatment he suffered at the hands of a wealthy landowner, which ignited his quest for social justice and led him to join the revolutionary cause. Initially, Villa's participation in the revolution was motivated by personal gain. During this period, Mexico was rife with revolutionary groups, and Villa recognized an opportunity to gain from looting, pillaging, and violence as part of the revolutionary forces. His outlook transformed after he encountered Francisco Madero, a key revolutionary figure whose principles of land reform and social justice had a profound impact on Villa. Although he did not fully understand the intricacies of politics, Villa committed himself to Madero and the revolutionary cause, despite occasionally grappling with his volatile temperament. Villa's journey in the revolution was marked by numerous obstacles. He narrowly escaped execution on several occasions, often thanks to timely rescues by Madero. Despite his dedication to the movement, Villa faced significant challenges, including a 4-month imprisonment in Mexico City, from which he executed a daring escape on Mexican Independence Day. After his escape to El Paso, Pancho Villa swiftly reorganized and established a new army in Chihuahua City. Following a fierce battle, his troops seized Juarez, where Villa took charge, implemented various reforms, and financed his extravagant lifestyle through taxation and legalized enterprises such as gambling and prostitution. While in Juarez, Villa lived in luxury, supporting his army with hidden wealth and indulging in lavish items like luxury cars and a constant supply of cannabis. Villa gained considerable fame as Francisco Madero's leading general and even returned control of Chihuahua City to its citizens as a symbolic gesture during Christmas. However, his fortunes began to decline when his former adversary, Venustiano Carranza, ascended to power with support from the United States. Villa's notorious raid on Columbus, New Mexico, triggered a punitive expedition led by General Blackjack Pershing. Despite Pershing's inability to capture him, the unyielding pursuit significantly depleted Villa's resources and weakened his influence. In a final bid for recognition, Villa launched an assault on Juarez, but faced defeat due to his troops being inebriated and ill-prepared. He ultimately retreated to a ranch, where he was assassinated in 1923. His death signified the conclusion of a multifaceted and contentious figure, whose legacy continues to provoke discussion today. Pancho Villa and his Mexican forces had a profound effect on cannabis consumption throughout the American West. As the United States underwent rapid development at the turn of the century, the lawlessness of the open frontier began to diminish, giving way to organized local governance. The era of the Wild West was coming to a close, along with the casual acceptance of cannabis. As cannabis use proliferated in the United States, it became associated with negative stereotypes regarding Mexicans. In the 19th century, newspapers and medical publications predominantly referred to the substance as cannabis. However, by the early 20th century, the term marijuana gained popularity, partly due to anti-cannabis campaigns that emphasized its Mexican origins to stoke anti-immigrant sentiments. The criminalization of cannabis is frequently attributed to influential groups with economic interests in suppressing hemp production. These entities propagated narratives linking cannabis to violent behavior, particularly among Mexican immigrants. This climate of fear, coupled with pre-existing biases, resulted in state-level restrictions and ultimately led to federal prohibition. In 1937, Harry Anslinger, the U.S. Narcotics Commissioner, testified before Congress, employing racially charged anecdotes to support marijuana prohibition. He asserted that marijuana use was widespread among minorities, especially within Black and Latino communities, and associated it with violent conduct and societal unrest. Henry J. Finger, a member of California's State Board of Pharmacy, voiced apprehensions regarding cannabis consumption among immigrants, highlighting its increasing prevalence among white communities. Although the anti-cannabis discourse often contained racial implications, the assertion that marijuana was prohibited solely due to Mexican immigrants oversimplifies the complexities of the situation. In fact, Mexico had already enacted a ban on marijuana in 1920, predating the U.S. federal enforcement initiated by the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. The anxieties surrounding cannabis were not solely rooted in racial prejudices. They also stemmed from concerns about its potential effects. Prior to the 1900s, cannabis was mainly acknowledged for its medicinal and industrial applications. However, by the early 20th century, exaggerated media portrayals began to depict marijuana as a perilous substance associated with violence and mental health issues. For instance, a 1905 article in the Los Angeles Times sensationalized the dangers of cannabis, influencing public opinion. Despite these narratives, there is a scarcity of historical evidence regarding marijuana's actual usage during this time. Issues related to dosage, consumption methods, and interactions with other substances were largely overlooked, resulting in much of the apprehension surrounding cannabis being based on conjecture rather than empirical evidence. The experience of cannabis consumption varied greatly depending on the method employed, such as smoking a joint mixed with tobacco compared to consuming cannabis-infused edibles or beverages. By 1936, all states had prohibited the recreational use of cannabis, and this ban was further solidified by the Federal Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Nevertheless, illicit cannabis use continued until the 1960s, when it experienced a resurgence in popularity, especially among youth in the hippie counterculture. Cannabis became a symbol of anti-establishment movements and was frequently present at protests against the Vietnam War, despite its continued illegality. In 1970, cannabis was completely prohibited under the Controlled Substances Act, a decision that followed the Supreme Court's ruling in Leary v. United States in 1969, which invalidated the Marijuana Tax Act. During the Wild West era, cannabis played various roles, evolving from a medicinal treatment utilized by immigrant workers to a recreational substance linked with outlaws and cowboys. This transformation reflects broader societal shifts, moving from acceptance to prohibition, and then back to a more tolerant stance. Despite being criminalized for a significant portion of the 20th century, 24 states have since repealed their bans, while an additional 14 states permit its use solely for medical purposes. The role of cannabis in the United States today is vastly different from its status in the late 19th century. As society continues to grapple with the complexities of cannabis regulation and changing attitudes, its historical importance during the Wild West period serves as a compelling reminder of its cultural significance. The plant's capacity to adapt to and shape the societies in which it exists underscores its lasting relevance in both historical and contemporary contexts.